Hello governors and welcome to a new simulations episode. Today is day 1 for Zhang Yu in the Rise of Kingdoms universe, and it's time to see if he's boom or bust before you spend any gems on him. Yes, that's the utility of these simulations. They give you a hint of what to expect before going all in. If you appreciate this type of content, please like and swarm that subscribe button. It will keep me investing in this project. Now, let's take Zhang Yu for a drive test, shall we? Before we start, we need to select a benchmark or two, just to make sure that we have a comparison point for our Zhang Yu rallies. First benchmark will be Nebu Ramesses, which we have thoroughly tested against Zenobia and Theodora, and they are the current meta. Next we have Chandra and William, a good benchmark within the same troop type category. I have equipped Zhang Yu and Zenobia and Theodora with similar equipment for this test, because what we want to test here is the strength in realistic battle conditions. The talent tree I've selected for Zhang Yu is this one with a high investment in the skill tree and the rest of it in the calves tree, aiming for some skill damage protection from here. Finally, please keep in mind that Zhang Yu is a new commander and some of his skill descriptions may be different from the actual in-game mechanics. These early simulations cannot take into account things that are based on things we don't know. We'll be going on a simulations marathon for the next couple of videos, but to start with, I selected Saladin and William as potential pairs for Zhang Yu. You see here there's only one battle card for Zhang Yu and Saladin, but 4 different battle cards for the Zhang Yu-William combination, because these two commanders have some synergies that will trigger in particular circumstances. So I thought it's fair if I do a more thorough testing. The first scenario is the typical 1 versus 1 rally against garrison situation. No other marches around for AoE to hit, no swarming, which means some of the skill mechanics and synergies will not trigger. The second scenario, where some of the buffs are partially triggered, is the situation where your side is swarming the structure. This will trigger extra damage factor from target surrounding effect in Norman Conquest skill from William. However, since your team is swarming the structure, it will cost you more dead troops in other marches. Partial buffs 2 scenario is when you are being swarmed or there are enemy troops very close to the structure that you are rallying. This will trigger 4 different effects. You will get some rage from William's AoE from hitting multiple targets, which in turn triggers a 10% extra skill damage from Zhang Yu's expertise. However, you get reduced damage output towards the garrison itself from both commanders because they both have damage reductions when hitting multiple targets. Finally, the 4th battle card is the one where every effect takes place. If you noticed, the 2 partial buff scenarios are situations where you either control the field and you can afford to swarm, or the enemy controls the field and they swarm you down. So for this last scenario, it's continuous havoc in the rally versus garrison area. No one controls the field, both sides have a large amount of troops nearby, you're swarming the garrison while they're swarming your rally. I think this is very unlikely, but I'm well aware that it may happen, especially in Ark of Osiris or in big KVK fights. Now let's set the Nebu and Ramesses benchmark. As you can see, with equal strength equipment, their win rate against Zenobia and Theodora is only 7.3%, which is quite low for a meta rally combination. They are simply dominated in an equal-sided competition, and you need extra open field presence to defeat the garrison. Now I'll set the benchmark for the Cavs skill rally. Their win rate is even lower, which is to be expected for a Cavs versus infantry rally situation. Now let's get to the newcomer, and let's start with Zhang Yu Saladin. You can see here the simulated effects from skills for both of these commanders. First we have Zhang Yu as primary, and then Saladin as secondary. Everything Zhang Yu does is geared towards dealing more and more damage. We have 2 direct damage factor skills. We have 4 additional effects that increase damage, either all of it or only skill damage. We even have a defense debuff from the active skill. Here's the active skill proccing, and then 3 seconds afterwards, there's a 30% defense debuff. This is very useful because the secondary commander will proc while the enemy has 30% less defense. which is a good reason for Zhang Yu to be primary and for his secondary commander to be someone with active skill damage. Finally, he also has a rage cost reduction effect, which further reduces his already lower 900 rage required for active skill proccing to 850. So Zhang Yu is going to machine gun skill damage. Saladin, on the other hand, is on the protective side, and many are favoring him because Zhang Yu is what they call a glass cannon. Saladin's role is to absorb some of that damage taken by this pair, either in the form of skill damage reduction up to 30% or counter damage reduction 20%. There's also a skill here that I have disabled because it only applies when the rally is attacking cities, and in this scenario we're attacking structures, not cities. And they lost. They lost so bad that I decided I'm not going to bore you with the actual simulation. They actually did a bit better than Chandra William, but only by a small bit. The Nebu Ramesses meta is still safe. Now, let's get to the more complicated scenarios and start with the basic one. You see, I've marked here as disabled the effects that would normally not go into effect in a 1 versus 1 situation. Of course, there may be a Joan of Arc or a Trajan or something that gives additional rage to Zhang Yu so that he's not dependent on the rage buff from William, and that would trigger his additional 10% skill damage bonus. But I wanted to test a pure 1 versus 1 situation. The benefit on their side is that the entire skill damage from their active skill is directed towards the garrison with no additional targets penalties. Let's start the test and see what happens. And the battle is on. Okay. Not doing bad at the moment. Remember, the benchmark is somewhere between 7 and 8% for Nebu and Ramesses. So that's archer versus infantry on equal strength equipment. And this is cavalry versus infantry on equal strength equipment. And it's still oscillating in this area, but it seems to be stabilizing somewhere a bit higher compared to Nebu and Ramesses. This is a surprising result so far. So after roughly 100 battles in identical conditions, with all of the randomness involved, the current average win rate for the new commander Zhang Yu and William as his secondary is slightly higher than Nebu and Ramesses. Okay, this is surprising. This really is unexpected, from my side at least. I was expecting Saladin to be doing a better job than this because I thought they must need some protection. Zhang Yu is all about that damage, and William also provides some damage. But yeah, I think what's happening is something similar with what we saw in the Nebu and Ramesses scenario. In KVK mode, which is what we're doing to run this as well, with 40% more damage and also some 20% extra attack for both sides, the damage that the rally is pumping is higher than what Zenobia and Theodora can absorb. And this is with no additional effects from what we discussed earlier, from swarming the garrison or from having your rally swarmed. Okay, we're close to the end now of the first simulation. 3% left, 2, 1, and 16% win rate. This is almost double the win rate of Nebu and Ramesses. So guys, this is I hope you appreciate this, because this means new meta in the game against Zenobia. And let me just mention again, this is based on what we know so far about Zhang Yu. In case there's something wrong with the descriptions or some mechanics that will be adjusted later, this might change. But yeah, we have signs of potentially new meta from the second commander pair that we've tested Zhang Yu with. Wow. Okay, let's mark down these results and move to the next scenarios. Okay, we're back to the setup page, and I have enabled this effect from the Norman Conquest skill. Here, if the target takes damage from other marches, whenever the Norman Conquest main skill triggers, William will also trigger an additional damage factor up to 5 times 100. And I've decided to be a bit moderate because the implications of this are quite extraordinary. Let's see what happens. So the consistent difference between this scenario and the previous one is 300 damage factor in one 10% trigger rate skill from William. That's the only thing that makes it different. Let's see. Yeah, the results are better, which is expected. Not that much better so far, but it's still oscillating in the 20 to 30% area. Whereas last time in the previous test we had a lot of oscillation between 10 and 20% that it eventually stopped at 16%. Now sometimes it's going above 30, but it kind of gets pushed back right away. We are gone through 1/3 of the simulation. And now there's some big pushing going on into the 30% area. Wow, this is just 300 damage factor from now and then, but I think what's happening in the background is that additional damage boost, whole damage boost, from a couple of the skills of Zhang Yu. So he has his 5%, I think, boost from cavalry, and then there's another 10% for skill damage. And there's also that 30% defense debuff. All of those will add to that 300 damage. Of course, the defense debuff only if that's for 3 seconds only. So only if we're lucky we get that to stack with the 300 extra damage factor. Yeah, so we're stable around the 30% area. Imagine if I would have included 500 damage factor instead of 300. Okay, we're almost done. So this is the scenario where we are swarming the flag. We are getting additional damage in our other marches, but the rally is being helped. So let's see, 100% and 31%. Again, we're almost doubling the previous result. So that's how important this is. But again, keep in mind, in this scenario, we are using other marches to swarm the garrison, which will result in more dead troops and more losses in the other marches. So here we are again, 30% win rate with some extra help from other marches swarming. And one thing to note here, in order for this high win rate to happen, you'd have to start swarming the garrison right away as the rally hits. And it is going to be painful for the other marches, because Theodora has a circular AoE effect, and she also has a skill that I think is boosting 40% all damage with a 10% chance every time she receives damage. So you have to weigh your options carefully before you actually start doing this. Now let's apply the other partial buff scenario. The one where you're no longer controlling the field and your rally is being swarmed. That's one of the major problems with all rallies, maybe except Attila and Takeda. They are being swarmed down if you don't own the field. Let's see what happens. Okay, we're back in the setup screen where I have disabled the extra damage factor we previously tested, and instead I've enabled the rage buff that comes from the Scourge of the North skill from William, because in this scenario you'll be hitting extra targets with your AoE. The extra rage will also trigger an extra 10% skill damage for 3 seconds in Zhang Yu. However, both of them will suffer from reduced active skill damage for hitting multiple targets. You will still do a lot of damage to some extra targets on the map, but we're interested more to see what the impact is on the garrison. And look, I know these conditions will not remain linear. Throughout the battles, sometimes you will hit multiple targets, some other times you will not, but I don't want to introduce more randomness than these commanders already have. I just want to gauge their overall effectiveness in these scenarios. And yeah, there's an additional important effect. The fact that your rally is being swarmed will of course reduce the number of troops in your rally. So to reflect that, I've added additional external damage that is going to be received by Zhang Yu and William, which will basically melt them faster. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's swarm them down. Let's help our garrison and swarm down the rally. Yeah, this is totally expected, and like it happens in game as well, when the rally gets swarmed, especially if it's a glass cannon rally like this one, the garrison always wins. Of course, you may cancel the rally, but yeah, you're getting knocked down. And by the way, I considered applying the same effect in the previous test, where we tested the reverse situation, where our side, the rally side, is using additional marches to swarm down Zenobia and Theodora. The reason why I didn't include those additional dead troops in the garrison is that, of course, it would have increased the win rate for the rally. However, you would have taken extra dead troops from the swarming marches, which are also part of your team. So I just didn't want you to believe that a very high performance rally, because it's being helped by additional marches on the field swarming the garrison, is the way to go. It's going to give you dead troops elsewhere. And use it with caution. We know now, according to the previous simulation, that it's going to improve your results, but those are the rally's results. They're not your overall results, which will include more dead troops anyway. Now, getting back to this particular simulation, you see the rally is getting swarmed down pretty fast. It's the average is around 80 something seconds. Again, these are tests with 200,000 troops on each side just to make the battles shorter and the simulation to run smoother. But yeah, the effect is proportional to what you would see in game. So yeah, no surprises here. We'll just wait for it to finalize. 5% remaining now. And we're going to compare the duration in the battle screen. Okay, so here are the results. Of course, they're a bit tragic. I'm just going to change the caption here. Being swarmed will lead to defeat. And I'm changing suboptimal to defeat. 100% or 100% defeat. Now, we're down to our very last test for today, and this will be a combination of the previous two partial buff scenarios. I will simply enable all the extra effects, and what I will also do is lower by a bit the amount of damage the rally is receiving from being swarmed. Because if your own troops are going to be around the rally, the enemy presence is going to be lower, so there will be fewer open field marches to swarm your rally. Okay, let's release the Havoc and see what happens. And yeah, we're still losing. It's the duration increased. We had an average of 80 seconds, I think, and now we're averaging roughly 100. And also the number of troops remaining in garrison, I think we had somewhere over 70,000 troops, and it has almost halved. And yeah, that's the effect of having enough troops remaining in your rally to still do damage, and also the additional effects from the skills enabled by hitting multiple targets. But overall, it's still a losing deal as long as there are additional armies focusing on your rally. Since this is a glass cannon rally, you're going to get knocked down. And something similar will happen if you get counter rallied. So you will be dealing some additional damage, but the counter rally will hit you back quite hard. Now, I'll just fast forward to 100% and I'll see you on the battle screen for conclusions. I've added the extra damage from enemy marches swarming will lead to defeat in both of these scenarios, and you can see it didn't go well. However, Zhang Yu is a worthy investment, but please be aware that he will melt like most other rallies if he gets swarmed down. I hope testing these alternative scenarios has been as realistic as possible, and I also hope that you enjoyed it. The big revelation is this: in equal conditions and without outside intervention, Zhang Yu and William looks to be a better rally choice than Nebu and Ramesses. We have a lot more tests to do. Maybe there's another pair for Zhang Yu that helps him do even better. The Zhang Yu marathon has just started on this channel. Stay tuned. And please remember you saw this here first and spread the word. Be the rage engine that helps me maintain and grow the channel. Thanks for watching. Cheers!